My name is Claire Lawson, and I'm 29 years old.
The night my fiancé posted last night of freedom with photos of himself at a club, his ex-girlfriend in his lap, I didn't scream, cry, or throw my phone. I just sat there on my couch, watching the tiny white bar at the top of my screen as if it were a fuse burning down. Notification after notification popped up. Likes, comments, reactions. Little fireworks over the image of my future husband acting like he wasn't engaged at all. 9 days before our wedding, Brandon had told me he was having a low-key bachelor thing with a couple of his buddies. Maybe poker, maybe some beers at Mason's place. Nothing wild, he'd said, kissing my forehead while I updated the last line of our wedding spreadsheet. We're lucky Dad's paying for everything, he'd added. Don't stress, just enjoy this. By Dad, he meant his father, Raymond Miller. Raymond owns 3 car dealerships and a very carefully curated public image. He'd insisted on covering the whole wedding, $80,000, give or take. Caterer, venue, photographer, the works. The only condition he'd mentioned, in that firm, casual way men like him have, was simple. No wild bachelor party. There are business partners and their families coming. I've got a reputation to maintain. Brandon had laughed it off, but agreed. Over and over he'd told me, honestly, I'm over that scene. I just want to be with you. So when my phone buzzed that Thursday night around 11, I was sitting in my leggings, reviewing a project timeline for Monday, half listening to some cooking competition show. I swiped open Instagram without thinking. Brandon Miller added to their story. The first video nearly knocked the air out of me. The caption read, "Last night of freedom." He was not at Mason's place. The camera panned over a packed club, neon lights strobing, bodies swaying, bass thudding so hard I could practically feel it through the glass of my windows. And there, dead center, was Brandon. He was in one of his fitted button-downs, sleeves rolled, top buttons undone. And on his lap, straddling him like they were the only 2 people in the room, was Tessa Ward, his ex-girlfriend. Her arms looped around his neck, her hair brushing his cheek. His hands were locked around her waist like he'd never let go. In the short clip, she threw her head back and laughed, then bent down to kiss his neck. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the pause button, suddenly very aware of how quiet our apartment was. The show I'd been watching kept playing in the background, someone shouting about overcooked scallops, but my brain filed it under irrelevant noise and muted everything but the tiny rectangle in my hand. Another notification, another story. This time Tessa's back was to the camera. The caption, "Boys' Night, my way." Someone shouted Brandon's name, and he grinned like a kid handed a trophy. Tessa ground down on him, her hands in his hair, the beat syncing with the slow drag of her hips. My stomach clenched. I kept tapping. Photo. Brandon lying back in the booth, shirt half untucked. Tessa pouring a body shot down his chest, her tongue chasing the trail. His eyes were closed, mouth open in a laugh that I used to think was mine. Photo. Brandon and Tessa pressed against each other on the dance floor, his hands roaming, her lipstick smeared. Photo. The 2 of them making out, full tongue, like the rest of the world didn't exist. The last one stopped me cold. Brandon's hand was up Tessa's dress, fingers disappearing under sequins, her thigh hooked over his hip. The caption read, "What happens at the bachelor party stays at the bachelor party." Except, apparently, when you post it on social media. Something inside me went very, very quiet. Not shattered, not exploded, just quiet, like a door slowly closing in a long hallway. I took a breath, then another. Then I started taking screenshots. Tap, tap, tap. Each image saved, each clip recorded. My hands were steady, which somehow made me feel worse, like part of me had been waiting for this, ready for it. A DM popped up from Mason. "Yo, don't freak out, it's just jokes." I didn't answer. Instead, I went back to the last photo, the hand under the dress one, and tapped Add a Comment. My reflection stared back at me in the black border around the image. Messy bun, faded t-shirt with my tech company's logo, the ring on my left hand catching the light from the TV. I typed, "First night of freedom, actually. Wedding's off." Then I hit post. For a second, nothing happened. Then my phone vibrated like it had swallowed a hive of bees. My comment lit up with likes. People started replying with shocked emojis, question marks. Wait, what? I swiped to my profile, changed my relationship status to single, and did one more thing. I went back to Brandon's story, opened that last photo, and tagged Raymond Miller. Tap. If Brandon wanted an audience, I was happy to provide the right one. Within 5 minutes, my phone turned into a bomb. Brandon calling, Denise calling, numbers I didn't recognize flooding my screen. Mason, Jack, even Chloe, who I barely knew. I watched them all roll in, let them hit voicemail. Then I did something that felt like dropping a curtain. I turned the phone off, set it face down on the coffee table, and went to bed. In the morning, the doorbell became my alarm. Not just a polite ring, full on, continuous pressure. Whoever it was leaned on the button like they were trying to break it. I checked the peephole. Denise. She stood on my porch in a pressed blouse and too bright lipstick, eyes blazing. Beside her, looking like he'd crawled out of a dumpster behind the club, was Brandon. His hair was a mess, shirt wrinkled, the same jeans from last night. Tessa's glitter was still on his collar. I opened the door. "How dare you humiliate my son like that?" Denise exploded before I could even say hello. Her voice carried straight past me into the hallway. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Brandon went for the wounded look, eyes big, jaw tight. "Claire, can we please talk inside?" "No," I said. "We can talk right here." Denise's nostrils flared. "You don't air private issues on the internet. That was cruel." I cocked my head. "You mean like posting your last night of freedom with your ex-girlfriend on your public story?" Brandon winced. "It meant nothing, okay? It was just fun. Everyone was drunk. Tessa and I were joking around. All guys do this." "Do all guys also post it where their fiancé, their father, and half the city can see?" I asked. He opened his mouth, but I was done pretending I didn't have proof. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I'd turned it back on before opening the door, and swiped to my camera roll. I held the screen up so Denise couldn't miss it. "This," I said, showing the photo of Tessa in his lap, his hand under her dress, "is just dancing?" For a moment, Denise's face crumpled. She actually gasped, one hand flying to her chest. Whatever line she'd prepared to defend him with clearly didn't cover the almost up her dress shot. "Delete those right now," she snapped, recovering fast. "The wedding is in 9 days. Do you hear me, young lady? 9 days." "What wedding?" I asked. Brandon flinched like I'd slapped him. "You already paid for everything," he blurted. The soft, apologetic act vanished, replaced by the tight, annoyed tone I'd heard when waiters got his order wrong. "You can't cancel now, Claire. Do you know how this will make me look? How this will make us look?" There it was. Not "I'm sorry," not "I made a mistake," just, "Do you know how this will make me look?" I felt that quiet place inside me harden into something solid. "Pretty sure you managed that all on your own," I said. "You and Tessa." "That's between us," he snapped. "Raymond paid for the entire wedding. 80 grand, Claire. You can't just walk away. The deposits are non-refundable." "You insisted your dad handle everything," I reminded him. "Remember? You said you didn't want me stressing over money stuff." Denise went pale. "The deposits are non-refundable," she repeated, like she'd only just processed it. They'd expected me to be trapped by sunk costs. I stepped back into the doorway, hand on the edge. "That sounds like a Raymond problem," I said quietly. "Not mine." Denise's eyes flashed. "You are being hysterical. Over a few stupid photos." I thought about the captions. "Last night of freedom. What happens at the bachelor party stays at the bachelor party." "You should go," I said. Denise opened her mouth to spit something else at me, but Brandon touched her arm. "Mom, let's just—" She yanked away and pointed a finger in my face. "You will regret this. When this blows over and you've ruined your own future." I closed the door. Her voice cut off mid-threat. For a few seconds, I leaned my forehead against the wood, listening to muffled shouting on the other side. Footsteps. Finally, silence. I exhaled. 3 hours later, I learned we weren't done. I was rinsing a coffee mug when a bright splash of color reflected in the window above my sink. I frowned, wiped the glass with the side of my wrist, and looked again. A news van was parked at the curb. Local Channel 7. A woman in a blazer was standing on the sidewalk, talking to a camera. Behind her, framed perfectly in the shot, was my building. My phone buzzed on the counter, buzzing and buzzing until I flipped it over. A notification from the station's app. "Groom says fiancé's social media revenge went too far. Tune in at noon." Apparently, Brandon had found a new audience. And this time, he was telling them I was the monster. Channel 7 ran the piece at noon. I didn't sit down to watch it. I tried to pretend I didn't care, that it was just noise. But as a project manager, I'm built to track damage, not ignore it. So I propped my phone against the sugar jar, turned the volume down low, and watched myself be rewritten. They filmed Brandon in what looked like his parents' living room. Denise sat just out of frame. You could see the edge of her blouse sleeve, the way moms do when they're hovering, but pretending they're not. Brandon wore a soft gray sweater he'd never voluntarily buy. hair neatly combed, eyes just a little wet. The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, "Groom says fiancé's social media revenge went too far." The reporter, a woman with perfectly flat-ironed hair, nodded sympathetically. "Brandon, tell us what happened." He sighed, staring at his hands like none of this had ever been his idea. I went out with my friends," he said. "It was my bachelor party. We had a few drinks. We were being stupid and posting videos. It was harmless fun, really. You know how guys are." He gave a weak little laugh. "But my fiancée, Claire, she saw it and she posted that the wedding was off. She tagged my dad. She basically ruined my life over something that meant nothing." They cut to a blurred-out shot of one of the Tamir photos. Tessa sitting next to him in the booth, his arm around her shoulders. A tasteful censor bar covered the more incriminating parts. The reporter frowned with concern. "And how did that make you feel?" Brandon's jaw worked like he was holding back tears. "Humiliated," he said. "Blindsided. She didn't talk to me, didn't ask what happened. She just weaponized social media. I've gotten death threats, people calling me a cheater, a monster. I made a mistake, but I didn't deserve to be destroyed like that." The word destroyed hung in the air. I glanced at the stack of moving boxes we'd ordered for after the honeymoon, at the ring still on my finger. "Have you tried to reach out to her?" the reporter asked. His eyes shimmered, perfectly on cue. "She won't answer my calls. She blocked me. I just wish she could forgive me for one stupid night. Isn't a lifetime together worth more than that?" They cut to a stock photo of a white dress on a hanger, swaying in slow motion. I felt something in my chest twist, not because I believed him, but because I knew exactly how this would play. Crazy bride ruins poor groom. It was a story people were ready to consume before lunch. The reporter closed with, "Experts say social media can be a dangerous weapon when relationships go wrong. Coming up after the break, how you can protect yourself from online revenge." Protect yourself. Sure. My phone, which I'd muted, buzzed nonstop. Group chats, coworkers, a cousin in another state sending question marks. I didn't open any of them. The thing about the internet, though, it has a much shorter attention span for staged tears than for receipts. By 2 o'clock, Channel 7 had posted a clip of the segment on their Facebook page. By 3, the comment section had turned into a bonfire. Someone had found Brandon's original, uncensored story. Even though he'd deleted it, even though his Instagram was suddenly private, the screenshots I'd taken were now everywhere. Not because of me. I hadn't posted them. But somebody who followed both of us had, and once they were out there, people did what people do best online. They zoomed in. "Harmless fun, he's got his hand up her dress," one comment read. "He posted this himself and he's mad someone noticed," another said. Channel 7 really ran this without fact-checking anything. Yikes. I watched the tide turn in real time, angry face reactions piling up on the video. The station replying with, "We are looking into additional information like that would plug the leak." Then the universe added one more player to the chaos. A friend request popped up from a man I didn't know, Mark Ward. No mutuals except one, Tessa. I stared at his name for a long moment before accepting. His first message arrived instantly. "Hi Claire, I think my wife is the woman in your ex's video. Can we talk?" My ears rang. We ended up on a video call half an hour later. Mark was in a small home office, divorce-era circles already forming under his eyes. Behind him, a framed family photo. A smiling woman in a sparkly dress, their arms around 2 little kids. Tessa, before the club lighting and smeared lipstick. "I saw the segment," he said, voice tight. I recognized her dress. I recognized his face. I thought I was going crazy until my cousin sent me the screenshots in the comments. He didn't cry. He looked like he was holding onto himself by the fingertips. "I'm so sorry," I said, "because what else could you possibly lead with?" He nodded once. "I figured you might want to see what she's been sending him." He shared his screen. Text bubbles. Dozens. Tessa's contact name in his phone was still Tess, but the content was anything but shining. 2 days of messages between her and Brandon. Her telling him she missed him. Him sending shirtless mirror selfies. Her sending photos that made my stomach flip, not because of what she was wearing, but because of what she'd written. "My husband's boring. He thinks we're monogamous. He has no idea. Your fiancé is just for show because she has that tech money. We both deserve to feel alive." Rich. I almost laughed. Not because any of it was funny, but because of how absurdly off base it was. I paid my bills. I had savings. I was not the walking trust fund she'd built in her head. Did you know about any of this? I asked. Mark's jaw clenched. No, not until last night. I checked our phone records. This isn't the first time they've talked. This isn't even the first time they've met up. He clicked through screenshots, hotel receipts, time-stamped messages, Tessa bragging about hooking up in the car behind the bar, about a motel night she'd put on a credit card. A card Raymond pays for, I murmured, recognizing the bank logo and the account name. Mark caught it. Raymond? His dad, I said. He's going to love that line item. We sat there for a second in shared, miserable camaraderie. Two strangers connected by the same rotting knot. Look, he said finally, I'm talking to a lawyer. She's not stable. She's been driving past my sister's house when I'm there, showing up at places she thinks I might be. If you ever need a statement, or if this turns into something legal on your end, I'm happy to share all this. I might take you up on that, I said. After we hung up, I forwarded the screenshots to one person. Raymond. I didn't bother with the long explanation. Just attached the files and wrote, You asked if the photos showed what you think they show. Here's the context. I'm sorry. He called me an hour later. Claire, he said, and his voice was the tired kind of devastated, the kind you hear in waiting rooms and parking lots after funerals. Yes, I saw, he said. Paper rustled on his end like he was sitting at his office desk going through statements. I saw everything. I didn't send it to hurt you, I said softly. You deserve to know where your money was going. A bitter laugh slipped out of him. I deserve a lot of things, apparently, but thank you, for the truth, at least. There was a long, deep silence. Every penny I can pull from that wedding is gone, he said finally. Catering, venue, photographer, everything. Whatever I can't get back, I'll cover myself. Denise can scream all she wants, but I'm done funding this circus. You don't have to. Yes, he cut in. I do. I raised him better than this. Or I thought I did. Another pause. You're doing the right thing, Claire. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. When we hung up, my hands trembled for the first time since the night before. Not from fear, from the strange relief of being believed by the one person they'd assumed would be on Brandon's side forever. The relief lasted approximately 3 hours. Then came the hallway ambush. It was around 7 when someone started pounding on my door again. Not the insistent buzz of a mother this time. A careless, heavy-handed banging that rattled the frame. I checked the peephole and exhaled a curse under my breath. Chloe, in a crop top and righteous fury. Mason, arms folded. Jack, filming something on his phone until Chloe hissed at him to stop. And behind them, trying to look composed and failing, was Brandon. I opened the door just enough to block their view of my living room. We need to talk about your toxic behavior, Chloe said, like she was delivering a TED Talk. My what now? I asked. You're punishing Brandon for expressing his sexuality, she declared. It's literally a bachelor party. He was blowing off steam. You just nuked 3 years over some dancing. If that's what we're calling it, I said. Mason stepped in, voice smoother. It's 2025, Claire. People do crazy stuff on their last night out. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you. You could at least talk to him instead of dragging him on social media. Jack nodded like a backup dancer. He can have all the fun he wants, I said. He just doesn't get to do it as my husband. Brandon pushed past Mason, eyes a little wild now that the cameras weren't official. You're overreacting, he snapped. You're making me look like some kind of predator. You did that, I said calmly. I just wrote a caption. His jaw ticked. The polished victim from TV was gone. This was the Brandon I'd seen on bad days, the one who sulked when life didn't match his expectations. If you don't take me back, he said suddenly, I'll tell everyone you hit me. Silence dropped over the hallway like a blanket. Chloe's mouth fell open. Brandon? Why not, he said, eyes never leaving mine. You already ruined my life. Might as well go all in. I didn't say anything at first. I just slid my phone out of my pocket, opened the camera app with one thumb, and hit record. I lifted it, making sure his face was in frame, held it there so he could see himself reflected in the glass. Say that again, I said quietly, on camera. His pupils shrank. For a second, I watched the calculation flicker behind his eyes, the way he weighed his own lie against the risk of having it documented. Mason swore under his breath. Dude, what the hell is wrong with you? Chloe took a step back. Even Jack lowered his hand. Phone forgotten. Brandon's lips curled, but he didn't repeat it. Instead, he spun around, muttering something about me being crazy and vindictive, and stormed toward the stairs. His friends shuffled after him, the intervention squad suddenly looking like kids who'd just watched their ringleader set his own hair on fire. As the stairwell door creaked shut behind them, my phone pinged again. A push notification from Channel 7. Developments in yesterday's bachelor party scandal. Husband of mystery woman speaks out. Tune in at 10. I watched the words scroll across my lock screen and felt a strange, grim satisfaction. This time, Brandon wouldn't be the only one on camera. The 10 p.m. segment opened with a dramatic headline. Exclusive, the other spouse speaks out. This time it wasn't Brandon sitting under soft lighting pretending to be heartbroken. It was Mark Ward, Tessa's husband, the same man who had shared the text with me earlier that day. They didn't blur his face. They didn't have to. He wanted people to see him. He sat at his kitchen table, eyes hollow, a mug in front of him that hadn't been touched. The reporter's voice was solemn now, like she'd realized halfway through this saga that she'd been played. Mr. Ward, when did you first realize your wife was involved with Brandon Miller? Mark exhaled through his nose. When my phone started exploding yesterday, I turned on the noon broadcast, and there she was, in his lap, the same dress she left the house in. I recognized the ring on her hand. He looked down at his mug, then back at the camera. She told me she was out with friends. The reporter nodded gently. You've since come forward with evidence? He nodded, sliding his phone across the table toward the camera. They zoomed in on the text bubbles, the same screenshots he'd shown me. Her messages calling Brandon the real deal. His mirror selfies captioned, "Wish you were here," instead of her. The reporter didn't censor much this time. They were done protecting the wrong person. Within minutes of the segment airing, Brandon's carefully curated victim act went up in flames. The Facebook comments turned vicious. Twitter, or X, whatever it was called now, was a wildfire. Channel 7 got catfished by a cheater, lol. No, wait. His ex's husband has receipts? He really said harmless fun while doing body shots off another man's wife. By midnight, Hatch Bachelor Partygate was trending locally. Someone even made a meme. A still of Brandon holding Tessa, with the caption, "When the bachelor party's too wild to have a wedding." I should have been asleep, but I lay awake in the dark, my phone face down beside me. The glow from the screen still pulsed through the bedsheets like a heartbeat. I wasn't gloating. Not exactly. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was something quieter, colder. The kind of peace that comes only when truth stops needing your defense. By morning, the story had taken on a life of its own. Tessa's Instagram vanished. Brandon's went private. Channel 7 quietly deleted the original segment and replaced it with a retraction. We regret airing incomplete information in last night's broadcast. Too little, too late. The phone rang around 8 a.m. The number on the screen made my stomach dip. Raymond Miller. I let it buzz twice before answering. Hello? His voice was heavy. Claire, did you see the follow-up? Yes, I said carefully. I suppose you know it's true. His tone wasn't angry, just tired. The man's wife sent me everything this morning. Pictures, texts, the motel bill. I stayed silent. I pulled the entire wedding fund last night, he said. Every penny I could recover. The rest, he exhaled. Well, she'll have to live with it. I'm sorry, Raymond, I said, and I meant it. He gave a short, humorless laugh. You're the only one who shouldn't be sorry. Denise spent the morning screaming that I've humiliated our son. I told her he did that himself, and that she's the reason he never learned what accountability means. Raymond, he cut me off gently. You did the right thing, Claire. Don't let anyone make you question that. I wish I'd had your backbone years ago. The line clicked off. I stood there for a moment, phone still to my ear, staring at nothing. That was the last quiet moment before the next storm. It started around lunchtime. 3 sharp knocks at the door. I expected a package. Instead, when I looked through the peephole, I saw 3 familiar faces lined up like a bad sitcom. Chloe again, arms crossed. Mason looking uneasy. And Jack. Phone raised, already recording. Behind them, trying to look composed, was Brandon. My stomach sank. I opened the door just enough to block their view. What now? I asked flatly. Chloe launched in immediately. We're here to talk about how unfair you're being. Unfair? I echoed. Yeah, Mason added, shifting awkwardly. You humiliated him publicly, Claire. You made this huge scene online. He just wants a chance to explain. He explained plenty on TV, I said, twice. Chloe rolled her eyes. You're punishing him for being human. Everyone makes mistakes. Women do bachelorette stuff all the time. It's 2025. Let it go. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. If this is supposed to make me feel better, it's not working. Brandon pushed past them, stepping into the doorway's shadow. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice low. We just need to talk, alone. No, I said. We really don't. Claire, please, he said.
You're blowing this out of proportion. Tessa meant nothing. I was drunk. She threw herself at me. You posted it, I reminded him. You captioned it, last night of freedom. He raked a hand through his hair. I was trying to look cool. You know how social media is. Actually, I said, I do. That flicker of temper I'd seen before returned. You're ruining my life. Over one stupid night. I didn't ruin your life, I said evenly. You did that with your phone camera. His jaw tightened. If you don't stop talking about this, I'll tell everyone you hit me. The hallway went silent. Mason's head snapped toward him. Dude, what? Chloe's mouth fell open. Brandon, no. He shrugged. Why not? She started this. She humiliated me first. I didn't move. I just pulled my phone from my pocket, opened the camera app, and hit record. Say that again, I said, voice calm. On video. His bravado flickered. You wouldn't. I would. Mason took a step back, muttering, Man, what the hell are you doing? Brandon's expression hardened. You're insane, he spat. I'm done with this. He stormed off down the hallway, his entourage scrambling after him. Mason hesitated at the stairs, met my eyes, and mouthed, I'm sorry, before following. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against the wood until my pulse slowed. That night, Channel 7 aired another follow-up, the one with Mark's evidence. The same reporter who'd sympathized with Brandon looked like she wanted to crawl under her desk. New evidence contradicts the groom's previous statements, she said. Texts and photos provided by Tessa Ward's husband reveal an ongoing affair leading up to the bachelor party. They even quoted Raymond's statement, I will not be funding any event associated with my son's conduct. By midnight, the headline had changed from Bride's Revenge Too Far to Groom's Party Scandal Deepens. Brandon's phone number started circulating in the comments, his social media filled with angry DMs and memes. He deleted everything, went offline, but by then, screenshots were everywhere. I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the end of it. But I underestimated how far humiliation can push a man who's never heard the word no. Because 2 days later, my apartment manager called me in the middle of a grocery run. Ms. Lawson, he said nervously, we caught someone trying to break into your unit. My hand went cold around the shopping basket. What? He sighed. Security detained him, and another person. He claimed he was your husband. I stopped dead between the cereal aisle and the self-checkout line. My what? He said he'd lost his key and hired a locksmith, the manager continued. Only the locksmith had a crowbar. We've already called the police. My cart rolled forward and bumped a shelf. Who was it? He hesitated. Brandon Miller. And someone named Derek. My vision narrowed to a pinpoint. By the time I reached the station, Brandon was sitting in a holding room, hands cuffed, still in that same wrinkled gray sweater from his TV interview. Derek, his cousin, apparently, was in the next chair, arms crossed, glaring at him. The officer on duty looked exhausted. He said he was your husband, ma'am. He's not, I said. He never was. Brandon turned toward me, expression desperate. Claire, just let me get my stuff. You threw away my medication. You don't take medication, I said. My grandmother's ashes, he blurted. Both of your grandmothers are alive. The cop raised an eyebrow. Brandon opened his mouth again, searching for another lie, but Derek cut him off. She said it was her apartment, Derek snapped. Offered me $500 to break the lock so she could get her things. I didn't know it was like this kind of drama. Brandon's head whipped toward him. Shut up, Derek. Sir, the officer said, pinching the bridge of his nose, you were caught on camera, attempting to pick the lock before calling your cousin. That's premeditated attempted breaking and entering. I pressed charges. I didn't even hesitate. Denise bailed him out that night and called me the moment he was free. Claire, she said, breathless and furious, how could you press charges against family? We're not family, I said. Your son made sure of that. It was a mistake, she shrieked. Haven't you ever made a mistake? Sure, I said. Proposing to him was a big one. She went silent for a beat, then hung up. I thought that was the end. Until the next morning, when Mark messaged me again. He's still texting her. She's still sending him photos. I'm filing for a restraining order. Want to combine evidence? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Absolutely. We sent everything to our respective lawyers that afternoon. That night, I poured a glass of wine, sat on my couch with the dog-eared wedding binder, still half full of contracts and seating charts, and finally let myself breathe. I thought about how quickly one text, one photo, one moment can unravel an entire future. But I wasn't mourning anymore. I was calculating, the way you do when you know the next move will decide how the story ends. The morning after Mark and I sent the files to our lawyers, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Unknown numbers, private calls, notifications pinging like hail on a metal roof. I ignored them all until one message made me stop cold.
It was from Mason. Hey, heads up. You might want to stay off social for a bit.
I didn't even need to ask why.
Because by lunchtime, Brandon had found a new stage. He showed up at my office.
In a tuxedo.
It wasn't even noon.
My coworker Jenna called from the front desk, whispering like she was reporting a hostage situation. Claire? There's a man here in a tux saying he's your fiancé. He's crying? Security's on their way, but you should probably know.
My pulse spiked. Don't let him near the elevators.
Too late. The cameras in the lobby streamed directly to our office Slack channel for security training purposes. Half the department was already watching. Brandon stood in the middle of the marble floor, boutonniere pinned, clutching a bouquet of white roses like a lifeline. His tie was crooked, his eyes were red-rimmed and glossy. The practiced TV tears now turned real.
Claire! His voice echoed off the glass walls. Please, just talk to me.
Dozens of employees peered over cubicle walls. One of the interns whispered, "Is this the guy from the news?" I froze behind the glass conference door as the scene unfolded. Security approached, calm but firm. "Sir, you're not allowed in this building."
Brandon turned on them, shouting, "You don't understand. She's my fiancée. Today was supposed to be our day."
He dropped to his knees, clutching the bouquet like it might anchor him to sanity. "I made a mistake. We can fix this, Claire." The flowers scattered across the tile when one of the guards gently but decisively pulled his hands away. Someone filmed it. Of course they did. The clip hit TikTok before I even made it home.
By the next morning, it had 2.3 million views.
Caption: "When the wedding's canceled, but he shows up anyway."
The comments were savage.
"Sir, this isn't a Nicholas Sparks movie. The mascara tears really sell the crazy. Imagine being the other woman watching this."
I muted every app, locked my phone, and tried to focus on work. But humiliation travels faster than healing, and Brandon wasn't finished burning down what was left of his reputation, or mine. Because the next day, the venue manager called me.
"Ms. Lawson, are you aware someone's using your booking today?"
I blinked. Excuse me?
"Your ex-fiancé is here, in a tux, alone. He said he's proceeding with the event."
I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. When Raymond called me half an hour later, his tone wasn't tired anymore. It was pure disbelief. He's at the venue, with a photographer.
What? He's having the wedding anyway.
I pressed the phone to my temple. With who?
"No one," Raymond said grimly. "Just himself." According to the catering manager, who happened to be friends with one of my coworkers, Brandon had shown up at the gates of the Riverstone estate, our original venue, in full wedding attire. He handed the staff a list of shots he wanted, walking down the aisle alone, holding out his hand, pretending someone was beside him,
cutting the cake solo. First dance with no one. He'd even brought a Bluetooth speaker playing a love ballad. By the time Raymond arrived, the photographer looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Brandon was slow dancing, with his own reflection in the mirrored wall.
"You're embarrassing yourself," Raymond told him.
Brandon just kept swaying, tears streaking down his cheeks. "She stole my day, Dad. I deserve my special day."
"You stole it from yourself," Raymond snapped. "You couldn't keep your promises or your hands to yourself." Brandon's voice rose to a wail. "You're supposed to be on my side." "I was," Raymond said quietly, "until you turned yourself into a headline." Then, turning to the staff, he added, "Box up all the food. Donate it to a shelter. At least someone would benefit." The photographer left halfway through, unpaid, posting later on Instagram. "Weirdest gig ever. Groom wanted couple shots, no bride. I can't make this up." He attached 3 photos, Brandon holding his own hand. Brandon toasting no one. Brandon mid-dance, alone under a spotlight. The post went viral overnight. The legal part came next. Brandon pled down from attempted breaking and entering to attempted trespassing. Sentence: 100 hours of community service, $2,500 fine, and a restraining order. And he wasn't allowed within 500 feet of me or my apartment. His lawyer tried arguing mental health crisis due to public humiliation. The judge barely blinked. "A mental health episode doesn't justify criminal acts, Mr. Miller. Actions have consequences." Even Tessa got her share. Mark filed for divorce and secured his own restraining order. Turns out she'd been driving by their house at night, sending Mark voicemails sobbing about fate and unfinished business. When her credit card statements surfaced during the split, they showed 2 motel charges from the months before the bachelor party, both in Brandon's name, both paid with Raymond's corporate account. That was the final straw. Raymond filed for divorce from Denise a week later. 31 years of marriage ended in the same fallout crater Brandon made for everyone else. I didn't gloat. Not when I saw the papers. Not even when Raymond told me. It just made me sad for all of them, for how one person's selfishness could poison every relationship around it.
Denise blamed Raymond for abandoning their son. Raymond blamed her for raising him to think consequences were optional. Brandon blamed me for everything.
And me? I was finally done being anyone's scapegoat. I moved into a new apartment across town. Smaller, brighter, quiet. I adopted a rescue pit bull named Diesel. He's got a scar across his muzzle and the softest eyes I've ever seen.
He sleeps at my feet while I work from home. He doesn't care about scandals, followers, or forgiveness, just that the bowl's full and someone scratches behind his ears.
I picked up rock climbing again. Something Brandon always said was too dangerous. The first time I reached the top of the indoor wall, palms chalked and trembling, I laughed out loud. The kind of laugh that belongs only to people who've survived the storm and can finally breathe the clean air after it.
2 weeks later, an unknown number texted me.
I'm sorry for everything. I know you'll never forgive me, but I wanted you to know I'm in therapy now. I realize I have a lot to work through. I hope you find happiness. Brandon. I stared at it for a long time.
Then I forwarded it to my lawyer, just in case. A few days after that, Mason reached out again. He asked if we could grab coffee.
Not about him, he said quickly. About closure. Against my better judgment, I went. He looked different without the bravado. Quieter. Tired.
I'm sorry for that night in your hallway, he said.
I didn't know he'd say that. If I had, I wouldn't have stood there. I nodded. You're not responsible for his choices. Mason stirred his coffee. You know he did this before, right? Not the news circus, but cheating. Gaslighting. He did it to my ex, too. Tessa wasn't even the first. He showed me texts from their old group chat the night of the bachelor party. Chloe and Jack egging Brandon on, saying, "Post it. Show the world she's lucky." Mason was the only one who replied, "Maybe don't."
We sat in silence for a while, the coffee shop hum wrapping around us.
Guess we both learned the hard way, Mason said finally. Yeah, I said, but at least we learned. We didn't talk about dating or forgiveness, just two people comparing scars, both relieved the bleeding had finally stopped. Last week, I ran into Raymond at a cafe downtown. He bought my coffee before I could protest.
I was going to give you two a house as a wedding gift, he said, smiling sadly.
Guess I dodged that expense, huh? I laughed, genuinely this time. Guess we both dodged something. He nodded. People like him don't learn, Claire. They just find new people to blame. I raised my cup. Then here's to not being one of them.
He clinked his mug against mine.
Outside, the city moved on. Cars honking, people crossing, sunlight flashing off windshields. And for the first time in months, I felt no weight pressing down on me. No noise, no heartbreak, no what-ifs. Just the quiet hum of a life that finally, blessedly, belonged entirely to me. I went home, fed Diesel, and took him for a walk by the river. He tugged on the leash, chasing a floating leaf, then turned back to look at me, like he was checking to see if I'd follow. I smiled. I'm coming, I told him.
Because I was. For the first time, I really was.